he will the editor of Science Robotics. He would like to say a few words about the journey of science robotics from beginning to this day, and also he will introduce some future directions that the journal plans to go towards. So, Amos, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Xiaopeng. Hopefully you can see my slides.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. It's an honor to be part of this event. I'm very pleased to be able to share some of our work at Science Robotics. So if you don't mind muting your microphone when you're talking, please. So yeah, I'll give a brief overview of the Journal of Science Robotics and touch on some areas that we're looking to expand on in the coming years. So Science Robotics was founded in 2016, and the mission was to promote advances in research and development of robotics for all environments. And it's also an aim to provide a forum for discussion of these scientific findings, but also other aspects related to advances of science. And our scope covers a very broad range of topics, from actuators and soft robotics, autonomous vehicles, to medical robotics, bionics, and even social robotics as well. In fact, since the inception of science robotics, the field of robotics has expanded quite broadly and now encompasses a wide range of other areas. And at the journal, we do our best to try and stay up to date with the community, and so we're always adjusting our scope. Indeed, some of the advances in areas like artificial intelligence and material science, for example, have played a really big role in terms of expanding the scope of robotics as a field. And we're trying to keep up with this as well. Now, what do we look for science robotics in our papers? The most important thing is the originality of the work. The conceptual advance must be substantial, especially when you compare to previous related work. We're not looking for incremental advances on existing literature. On the other hand, the milestones must also be obvious and substantial in terms of overcoming technical challenges. And related to that, the work must also address a long-standing problem or question. The study must also have some applicability to a system, either immediately or potentially in the future as well. And the long-term implications of the work must also be important, not just for your own field, but potentially other areas as well. In addition, the findings must also be unexpected in the sense that they alter the way we think about a problem. And finally, the work must also open up new opportunities beyond the immediate area of research as well. Now, in the first 5 years of Science Robotics, since it was founded, we published some very important papers in all sorts of areas in robotics. Some of the highest number of submissions came from topics like soft robotics, medical robotics, exoskeleton suits and prosthetics, and also human-robot interaction. And my mission in the next 5 years is to grow this even further, firstly by reaching out to new communities related to robotics in order to cover more areas, and secondly, also to have more regions across the world represented in our publications. I'm sure many of you have seen this perspective article, which we published in 2018. The title was The Grand Challenges of Science Robotics. And we essentially carried out a survey of the robotics community to identify the most important areas that would have an impact in the field, but also in society at large. And we narrowed this down to 10 key areas. And these included power and energy, robot swarms, medical robots, artificial intelligence, ethics, and many others. Although this was published in 2018, it's still very relevant today, and we're still very interested in publishing papers in these topics. We're also very keen on studies which focus on the deployment of robots in the real world. So I'm very excited to be part of this session. Although we also have a keen interest in fundamental scientific and engineering studies, especially those that shift the paradigm. We're also very keen in promoting studies that take the robots away from the laboratory and into the real world. And moreover, as these robots are deployed in various environments, we're also keen on studies that focus on things like ethics, social and safety issues during the deployment. And we also want studies that address problems that exist in the real world, not just those that occur in the laboratory or in theory. So I'll just finish off by highlighting some of our special issues, which we're aiming to publish next year. So if you have papers related to these topics, please consider submitting to Science Robotics. And these topics will be in telerobotics, embodied intelligence, autonomy in medical robotics, and also robots for education. So yeah, please do consider submitting to Science Robotics next year. And yeah, so finally, I just want to thank you. I know many of you have been referees for us and authors, so we're very honored to have you as part of our community. And yeah, I'm happy to take questions after this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amos. And now let's begin the presentation. So our first speaker is Dr. Li Zhang. And Dr. Zhang is a professor in the Department of Mechanical and Automation Engineering, and he is also a professor by courtesy in the Department of Surgery at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. He's also a director of Shenzhen Institute of Advanced Technology and the Chinese University of Hong Kong Joint Lab of Robotics and Intelligence System. Dr. Zhang's main research interests include small-scale robotics and their applications for translational biomedicine. Dr. Zhang, he will give us a talk about magnetic miniature robots for endoluminal interventions from individual to microswarms. Dr. Zhang, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Shopen, for your nice introduction. First of all, I feel very honored that I can have such a chance to give a presentation in Science Café in China, with a theme on deploying robots in the real world. I think Amos, give a very nice, this introduction about general science robotics. And, I think this topic is really the kind of, is a topic we need to think in our daily life, how we can further deploy our research results, for the real world application. And actually, it's very interesting developing the combination of us. As you editorial article for all of our researcher in this field. There's one interesting diagram, which I cited here related to the medical robotics. Basically, this shows the robotics scale. In a range around millimeter down to micro and nano scale. And why we're interested in developing such kind of miniature robots is because the current tools, such as endoscopy and catheter, although they are widely used in the hospital, but they are not ideal yet for the minimally invasive intervention. Let me just use this diagram as an example. So this diagram shows a very commonly used interventional tools in the hospital. This is a tip. So usually, this is inserted in the patient body for intervention. However, the clinician need to operate, this catheter from the far end, as you can see here. And, the length can be up to 50, 60 centimeter or even longer. So for example, if you want to navigate this tip to a specific, sub-branch to reach the region of interest, then the surgeon need to twist, or do this kind of, operation in a very far end. So it actually leads some issue, for example, this kind of tool is still lack of dexterity. And another issue is the diameter. So if you want to reach a very tiny lumen, such as, those kind of tiny blood vessel in your brain, in a range about 1 to 3 millimeter, or if you want to reach, for example, the bile duct, we know the bile duct has diameter in a range about 1 to 4 millimeter. Actually, the catheter or the endoscope, they still face a lot of challenge. So that's the reason we are thinking whether we can develop, the medical micro nano robots to access those hard to reach region for the minimally invasive intervention with a design from individual agent to the collectives. Okay, so this is our research motivation, and we are more interested in using magnetic field to actuate our medical miniature robots. One reason is because our human body is transparent to the magnetic field, and on the other hand, we know the magnetic field is considered safe for the human body. And regarding the actuation, basically, there are 2 ways. One is you can use gradient, to create a translation, and the other approach is you can use the torque to generate a rotation. And we are interested in using, the magnetic force and the magnetic torque to actuate both untethered.
So Professor Zhang, may I jump in? I hear the voice is quite blurred in your side. Would you like to put your microphone nearer? Yeah, I guess to be.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
No. Yeah.
Okay. So let me continue. Perhaps my internet connection is not stable. I don't know. Yeah. Let me continue. So the idea is whether we can design both untethered or tethered, these micro robots for the medical intervention. And here we show that you can actuate your device by either using the force, magnetic force or magnetic torque. So force can be induced when you're applying a gradient field, so the object, the ferromagnetic or the magnetized object will move from the low gradient field to the high gradient field with a translational movement. And when you apply a kind of, the magnetic torque, then, the object can be rotated accordingly if the magnetization direction of the object is misaligned with the B field. So it turns out that if you can program the B field, then basically you can create multiple degree of freedom of movement, right, of your miniature robots, including both translation and the rotation. And actually you can also well calculate, the force or the torque which are applied to the magnetic object. So this is actually a very good, thing for us. And actually, we started our design on designing the helical micro robots because this helical micro robots has been developed for almost 2 decades already. We are not the first group, so you can see that in the history, many groups have published lots of interesting results related to the helical micro robots, and people focus on the manufacturing of the micro robots in the range from micro to nano. For example, the group from ETH Zurich and the group from Max Planck Institute, right? People also demonstrate that the helical robots can penetrate through the tissue, if the applied magnetic torque is large enough. Or they also propose the usage of the helical robots in a different region, for example, in the eye, in the blood vessel, or maybe for the implants inside the ear. Okay, and actually, the first thing we are thinking is, as the, by aligning with this theme, deploying the micro robots for the real world. So, usually people propose, the usage of the microrobot deep inside the body. So the safety is a big issue, especially for those magnetic microrobots. We need to think about, right? So after treatment or after intervention, how can we deal with those magnetic material? So we are thinking that why not, we use this kind of microrobots not that deep inside of the body. So the first, thing we propose is to use it inside of the ear, actually in the region of the middle ear, for the cleaning, of the biofilm in the T-tube. So what happened is, that sometimes, the middle ear can be infected by the bacteria and induce a disease called otitis. And then, a lot of liquid can be created, inside of this middle ear region because of this bacterial infection. So what a medical doctor will do is, he or she will implant a small tube, implants called the T-tube, or sometimes people call the ear tube here, for the draining of the liquid outside this middle ear region. But the problem that because, this kind of liquid is induced by the bacterial infection, so the biofilm can grow, and after a certain time, then this T-tube can be blocked because of the biofilm growth. Then we're thinking that, how about we use a microrobot to do the cleaning of this T-tube, instead of, do a further surgery to take this T-tube out and implant a new one, because that is the current, the gold standard, what a clinician will do, right? So if this is from a blockage, then, they need to do further surgery to take it out and implant a new one, which takes 2 times of surgery. It will increase the burden of the hospital. So that's what we're thinking. Maybe we can use the microrobotic technology to solve that issue. So the idea is to use an endoscope to deploy these helical microrobots into this T-tube. And then this helical, robots can behave like a driller to break down the biofilm. Then, because of some kind of chemical reactions, they call the Fenton reaction or catalytic reaction, which can induce reactive oxygen species, which is a very strong, this kind of agent to kill the bacteria. So basically, based on this kind of mechanical and chemical reaction, we propose the usage of the helical microrobots to do the biofilm eradication in this kind of implants. And it works quite well. Because of time constraint, I will not go to details about the fabrication, but basically we're using a microrobotic technology based on this rope coil effect, to do the batch process of these helical microrobots. And microrobots can be very well controlled, by using a rotating magnetic field. As you can see that they can do the corkscrew motion very well in the glass tube with a diameter less than 1 millimeter. And we also did some kind of fundamental understanding work to see that how well it can drill through the biofilm by using some kind of a biofilm model. So here you see the occlusion created by the biofilm, and then we use a different mode to activate this tiny driller to see that what will be the best way to penetrate through the biofilm, as you can see here with the model 1, model 2, and model 3. And we conclude that the model 3 gives you the best performance. And afterwards, after we understand everything, then we did the cadaver study. I would like to emphasize this is perhaps one of the first cadaver study by using the microrobots. Okay, so which was done by surgeon at the Prince of Wales Hospital in Hong Kong. So here, what you see is a cadaver head. We first implant a T-tube, so which we obtained from a patient. This T-tube has a biofilm already. Then we take it out from the patient and we implant in the cadaver head. Then we did the entire process by using our helical microrobots, by using our magnetic actuation system, and the vision was done by using an ENT endoscope. So here you can see that we can do the real-time tracking of our helical microrobots, and we can use our magnetic system to actuate it, in the T-tube for the biofilm eradication. And most importantly, after the treatment, then we can use a tiny magnet to take this magnetic helix directly out from the ear. So that means, after treatment, nothing will will be left inside of your body to make sure that, you know, the entire process is very safe, as you can see here. So this work has had been published about 1 year ago in the Science Advances, which showing that, you know, by considering the safety issue, then we are proposing the usage of, you know, taking out the microrobot after usage. So actually, you know, regarding the medical miniature robots for clinical relevant therapy, you know, very recently, there's also a prospective article published in the Science. I guess many of the audience may have read this article already. Here, it basically shows that, you know, the miniature robots, you know, has a high potential. You know, it's just some kind of time, you know, issue, you know, to deploy this kind of thing in the human body or, you know, for the clinical trial. But of course, you know, nowadays people are still doing a lot of work to understand more, you know, how to well deploy the microrobots inside the body, and how to do the navigation, how to do the real-time tracking, and, you know, where will they go after treatment? For example, here show that, you know, the magnetic microrobots would be need to be biodegradable, or perhaps we need to do the clearance, right? Or take them out from the body after treatment. And of course, you know, people in the field, we're also asking ourselves, what are the key applications about, you know, the microrobots, their safety. And so, you know, in the following slides, I'm going to show one way to make sure the safety can be guaranteed is, you know, we propose the retrieval of our magnetic microrobots after treatment. Okay, so how to do that? You know, we just show some kind of concept here. So one way is, you know, you deploy your, for example, the helical microrobots in the body, and afterwards you take them out, right? But the previous slides we show is for the ear, but here we are just showing that, you know, in the for the blood vessel, or for the lumen inside the body, you can have some kind of design, you know, we have some kind of, you know, some kind of mechanical design which allow you to assemble a helical tip at the front side or at the tip of this guide wire. And what you can do that you can eject this kind of helical tip like a bullet, and after treatment, then you can retrieve it back, right? Because it's a helix, so you just do inverse the rotation, then basically you can then you can move it backwards. And this slide basically shows that, you know, we can use our home designed magnetic actuation system to very good, you know, the navigation of the this kind of tethered, you know, microrobots, which includes the guide wire and also the ejectable helical tip. And here, what you can see that we're able to eject this tip and to let it go through the tortuous lumen, and then we can also retrieve it back to guarantee that, you know, no magnetic material will be left inside the body. And the second way is you actually can also change it to an untethered design. So, for example, very recently, we had proposed this so-called modular design of the microrobots. So what happened is this modular microrobots has two parts. One is, you know, is with magnetic material for the actuation, and the second part is formed by a non-magnetic and fully degradable material. Here, what you can see is a kind of a cell scaffold. So we're able to use this kind of modular design microrobots to deliver this fully degradable cell scaffold to the region of interest. Then afterwards, then we're able to retrieve this magnetic part back, you know, into the catheter, again, to make sure that no magnetic material will be left inside of the body, okay, to improve the, you know, to further tackle this safety issue from the magnetic material. We had also done the animal study by using a rabbit model, and here, you know, what we demonstrate is a region called bile duct. So here, what you can see is a kind of a diagram of the bile duct. The bile duct really look like the root of a plant. It has many branches, and by using the magnetic field and under the X-ray real-time tracking, we're able to do the navigation of our modular microrobots in the bile duct and deliver, you know, this cell scaffold in the region of interest. Then afterwards, then we're able to retrieve back, you know, this magnetic part, you know, after we deliver this functional and cell scaffold module, okay? And this work will be online very soon in a week. So for more details, you can refer to that paper. So except for the design of those individual robots, we're also interested in a micro-robotic swarm. So basically, we know that the swarm is kind of a thing you can observe in nature. For example, you know, a school of fish or the ant bridge, right? But in nature, we know that when this creature form a swarm, the purpose is not just for fun. It's not to form some kind of fancy pattern. It's actually to create a new function. In many cases, you know, when they form the swarm, it can increase their adaptability to the environment, right? So their their survival rate in the nature will be high. For example, after ant form the bridge, then they can cross this large gap, and you know, a school of fish can escape from the predator, right? So this really can increase their adaptability in the nature. So actually, we are in the community, we're also thinking that, you know, a swarm or a collective of micro robots can also create a new function for the localized therapy. For example, it can increase dose capacity, or you know, it can be easier for the you know, for the tracking. But the problem that, you know, when we are talking about, you know, the micro robot swarm, the situation can be very different, because individual colloids or the artificial agent, how they can communicate with each other, right, is a big challenge. It's difficult to integrate, you know, the antenna, or you know, this kind of transmitter, or you know, all the things in such kind of small agent. So basically, we are using kind of the interaction force, right, to form the collective, from those colloidal particles. So what happens is, when you apply a magnetic field, then, you know, it will induce the magnetic interaction force from the adjacent particles. And when you actuate those kind of magnetic particle, then it will also induce the fluidic interaction, right? For example, when the particle chain keep rotating, it will form some kind of micro vortex, right? Micro vortex from the fluid, and adjacent, you know, the micro vortex can interact with each other. So by interplay, you know, this kind of interaction force, then we're able to create some interesting collective behavior from those kind of artificial, you know, this kind of tiny robotic agent, right? For example, by using the nanoparticles or other type of colloid system. So we have done a lot of work. Because of time constraint, I won't go to details. But basically, we have realized adaptive locomotion from the colloid particles. We're able to do the real-time tracking of those kind of particle colloids using the ultrasound Doppler mode, brightness mode, X-ray, so which allow you to do real-time tracking, because we need those kind of image for the vision feedback purpose. And once you have this kind of vision feedback, and once you know how to actuate those kind of particles, by tuning the input magnetic parameters, you actually can also realize the intelligent navigation. Of the autonomy of microbots, you know, because the generation and the navigation of these microrobots can be hardly done, right, by us. So we can imagine that if you ask a medical doctor to do the navigation or performing the microrobots, learning curve can be
Hi, Dr. Zhang. Your voice seems blurred again. Would you like to put the microphone nearer to you? Yeah.
Maybe I switch off my video. I don't know. Maybe the bandwidth is bad. Yeah. I don't know why today my voice is always blurry. It's unclear to me, but let me switch off my video. Yeah. Okay. Switch off my video.
Better. Would you like to put the microphone nearer to you? Was that better?
I'm using a headset, so the microphone is just next to my mouth. So how close should I put?
Yeah, now it's better. Now it's better.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Which was talking about the autonomy level of the medical robots. And interestingly, we found that, the main focus is still related to the surgical robots. But, how about the autonomy level for the medical micro nano robots is still unclear. Okay, so then we're thinking whether we can further develop, the micro robot swarm with a different level of autonomy, by using the deep learning. So the answer is yes. So we can do that. Because of time constraint, I will not go to details. Basically, we can design our micro robots with different level of autonomy. So what happens is that what you can see is a fully manual control of our micro robot swarm. And level 4 is, with the full automation navigation of a swarm. So the difference is here, what you see is, the full automation means the swarm knows how to do the transformation by itself, and it can judge, do the path planning, make a decision by itself, and it can also judge, the destiny of the target by itself. And here what you see the difference between the level 3 and level 4 is here. So the red point means the red point means, the destiny, or, the point of interest will be judged by a medical doctor, and the rest will be done automatically by the swarm. Okay, something like that. And here, in the level 2 basically means that the swarm knows how to do the transformation and how to judge the orientation by itself. But, the path planning will be done by the medical doctor, and, the target will be also judged by the medical doctor. So basically, here what I'm saying is autonomy of the micro nano robot swarm is not something like 0 or 1. Actually, you can have, different level of autonomy. Okay, I think this will be kind of helpful, for the clinician, when they're doing intervention by using micro robot swarm. And another region, we're interested in using the micro swarm is about dark. Okay, in about dark. So again, because micro robots usually are very small, right, Adrian? So to deliver this with a very long distance in the body, we don't think it's a good idea. So that's the reason we think it will be helpful to use endoscope or use catheter to do the assistant job for delivery purpose. Okay. And, one region of interest will be the bile duct, as I just introduced before. And then we're thinking that, we can deliver the diagram shows the concept, right? We use endoscope, which we can, reach the region. We're very close to the entrance of the bile duct. Then after we deploy these micro robots, then they can be navigated into the bile duct for the treatment, and go inside of this bile duct for the treatment. And then another question that, for the sake of safety, then we need to think the design of the micro robot, right? I mean, we're thinking perhaps, the cell or the stem cell from the patient is also a good choice. Okay, so that's the reason we developed some kind of stem cell spheroid. And, here what you can see is 98% are the stem cells, only 2% are the magnetic particle, so which allow us to, quickly deploy this kind of tiny micro robot swarm into the region, close to the bile duct, and then for the treatment. And this kind of cell spheroid, has a very high flexibility. It's very soft, with the stiffness similar to the brain tissue. And again, here you see that the majority of the stem cell, you just put a very small amount of magnetic particle inside. You can have over, something like 100K or 200K stem cell. It can squeeze through, this kind of tiny channel. It has a high elasticity, and you can do the tracking of this kind of stem cell spheroid by using different image modality, ranging from the endoscope, ultrasound, MRI, and also the fluorescence signal. And then, we have reported the way how to deploy these microrobots with several stages. So basically, you use the endoscope, it goes through, the natural orifice from the mouth, throat, esophagus, stomach, to the region close to the bile duct. That's in the duodenum, right? Then we deploy the microrobots, from the endoscope. Afterwards, we use a magnetic field to deploy, these microrobots, to let it go into the bile duct. And afterwards, we switch the imaging mode from the endoscope to the ultrasound for the real-time imaging and navigation purpose. So basically, the take-home message is, by using our approach, we're able to deliver a large amount of the stem cells into the bile duct. In minutes, something like, under the real-time tracking and magnetic navigation. And another beauty of this work is actually stem cells, they have certain level of intelligence. So they can judge, which the region is they preferred, and they can show some kind of reaction to it. For example, when the stem cell, a spheroid reach a region with a hydrophilic property, or or which the kind of biocompatible kind of the region of interest, then actually those stem cells can spread out very much like a droplet can spread out at the hydrophilic surface. It's kind of wetting, and you don't need to do anything. Basically, the stem cell will judge by itself and make the decision whether it should spread out and change from the sphere, change from the ball to a kind of a patch, right? To a kind of planar patch. Yeah, so it can be done automatically by itself. So this is a very interesting design, and we published this result in the Science Robotics about 2 years ago, showing that we had developed a kind of microrobots, swarm, which can be rapidly delivered by the endoscope. And it's very safe because you are using a patient stem cell, right? It's harvested from the patient. So basically the immunoreaction can be minimized. And we had also showed the image-guided magnetic navigation by using our home-developed magnetic system, okay? And yeah, this is actually close to the end of my talk. So currently, we are doing the preclinical trial, the animal study in the Hong Kong Science Park. So we have a very good, operation room. And you can see here, equipped with a C-arm X-ray and, the MRI, and also different type of the endoscopic system. And we are working together with a clinician to see that how much we can push the frontier of the medical microrobots for the treatment. So I really would like to thank, this forum, so I can show some of our latest results. I will say that, the development of the medical microrobots is still in the very early stage, for the clinical application. I think a very important thing that we need to talk with people with different expertise. For example, here you see a photo is, we took it when Professor Ruth Taylor visited us. We know that Professor Ruth Taylor is considered as the father of the medical robotics. So, we had discussion with him, how we should further develop our medical microrobots for the clinician. And on the other hand, in this photo, what you can see here is Professor Joseph Song, and currently he's the dean of the medical school at the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. So here showing that we're also discussing with the medical doctors to see that to figure out what are the real clinical needs. Actually, their comments and advice helped us a lot for the development of our medical microrobots. And in the end, I also would like to thank all my group members and also the graduated, the PhD student and the postdoc. And without their help, I think I cannot show these results. And also the funding agent who provide the, the financial support for our for our research and also the support from our collaborator. That's all for my presentation. Yeah, I'm very sorry for the bad internet connection. That perhaps is one issue for those kind of this online meeting. So in-person meeting can be can have less problem. Yeah. So hopefully we can see each other in person. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Zhang. And we will answer the question later. Maybe we begin the next presentation. Our next speaker is Dr. Li Wen. And Professor Wen is a professor and head of the Mechatronics and Automation Institute at the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Beijing University. His current research interests include biorobots, soft robotics, and robotic intelligence. He will give us a talk on octopus-inspired sensorized soft arm for environmental interaction. So, Dr. Wen, we look forward to your speech.
Okay, so thank you, Professor Dr. Liu, for your nice and warm introduction, and thank you for the invitation from Science Café in China. So I think this is my second time joining this great event. I feel so honored and so happy to take this chance to present our recent progress in my lab. So I'm Li Wen from Beijing University. You can see my email here and also my website. You can see all my publications there. So today I'm going to be talking about octopus-inspired soft robots for environmental interaction. Okay. So before I talk about octopus-inspired robots, I want to talk about soft robots in general. In the past decades, actually very exciting research progress has been made in this field. There are a lot of very interesting results happened, like software crawling robots, 3D printed purely software robots, or even biohybrid software robots. So these prototypes give us a lot of inspirations, not only referring to the whole robotic prototype, but also the development of the software structures, new ways of actuation and sensing elements. And even in 2021, there's one group from Georgia University deployed the soft robots into the deep sea to the Mariana Trench. Okay, so on one hand, we're looking forward to seeing new forms of the soft robots. On the other hand, we want to make the soft robots more intelligent and could be one day deployed to the real world. So the first important issue is how to make the software robots sensorized. Okay, if in the two review papers by Martin and also Professor George Whiteside's Science Robotics papers, they both emphasize how to embed software sensors or sensors and electronics into the bodies of the soft robots. So there is also one review paper published by a group of people, which is a perspective on science robotics. The indicated that the integration of e-skin, that is electronic skin, with soft robotics is really important. Okay, but until recently, most of research primarily focused on sensorized soft fingers or soft grippers, which are one element with a small number of sensors. Okay, but how to sensorize lifelike continuous soft robots is a very interesting and could inspire the next few years of research. Very luckily, we have a paper published recently talking about octopus-inspired sensorized soft robots. So I'm happy to take the chance to introduce more details of this research. Okay, but before I step into the robots, I want to talk about octopus, which is animals, how animals can interact with the real world. What are the challenges we should overcome for the robots if we want to develop soft robots to mimic the animals? So the first challenge is integrating multiple or even large number of sensors and soft electronics into the bodies of the soft robots that can enable sensing, data processing, computations, and even communication. Okay, So this is one problem. And another problem, if you look at how octopus arms motions, it's quite elegant. So it's I'm going to introduce locomotion later, but model and control the soft continual robots with a high number of degrees of freedom is the second challenge. So we're going to talk about how we solve these two problems according to the study. But let's take a look at the bio-inspired software robots in general. The way to scratch from zero and build such kind of bio-inspired software robots need to take several steps. So I would like to cite this diagram by Professor Fumiya Ida. So people start from morphological structures and then materials, and also incorporating the bio-inspired locomotion as well as sensory into the robot body. And there's a controller overhead to control the robot body. And the aim is to interact with the human and environments. Okay, so this is a fundamental thinking of how we can design our robots and how we can take a stepwise approach to start from the morphology and eventually come up with a prototype that can interact with the real world. Okay, so it's a stepwise research from starting from morphology and then materials, and then the bio-inspired locomotion, adding sensory, and finally, incorporating the environmental interaction into the robot. So let's first start from the morphology. So the octopus, they can just use one arm to catch prey of all shapes and sizes. Because the arm, they can wrap around, they can bend. With the whole arm, the entire arm was covered by suction cups. So if we look around the internet and search around all octopus species, we found that they are highly variable in taper angle. Okay, so if you look at some octopus mimicus, this type of special species, they have long but slender arm, while the Eladon, they have short and brawny arms. If we plot the octopus species on the y-axis while the taper angle on the x-axis, we saw that the range of the taper angle is between 3 degrees and 13 degrees. Okay, so but there's a uniform feature of all octopus species is the arm that can bend, wrap around, as well as suction. So to understand the morphological features of the octopus tentacles, so we built a very simple model at the beginning. So this is almost way back to seven years ago. So this is a prototype, very simple, with the L indicates the height, while the alpha indicates a taper angle. So when there is an inflation come into the robotic body, it will bend, while the deflation happens, the suction will suck the surface. And also we provide parameterized the chamber inside of the tentacles. So we can use AutoCAD program to design whatever shapes we want for this type of tapered software actuators. And then we do a finite element model. So I'm going to skip the details of the calculation, but directly go to the results. We found that the taper angle is inversely related to the curvature, while directly related to the force. So it's opposite. So there is a trade-off between the curvature and the force, which means that if you want to find a sweet spot which allow the tentacle to bend properly, as well as exerting a lot of force, you need to pick the right taper angle. So let me take one example. If we take the taper angle of 4.5 degrees, we can wrap around a piece of plastic, okay, into a diameter of around 2 centimeters. And they can also pick up like very lightweight or small-sized object, okay, from a nut to a test tube or some other weird shaped objects. Well, if we increase the taper angle to 9 degrees, situation become a little bit different. So we can pick up like a more heavier objects like an apple and also a Mac and also some jewelry box and even a practice ball at the diameter of 7.5 centimeters. So you can see this is a yoga ball picking up. So the tentacle is actually trying to lodge all the suckers on top of the practice ball and then pick it up. Yeah, using the combination forces exerting by the suckers. And then we also compare the tapered form robot with a traditional form with uniform cross section. We can see that the results can see that the tapered form can generate an even higher force and longer adhesion time. Whereas you can see here there is a propagation of the pilling. So which means that if you stick it on the plate, pull from one end, it will generating a peeling propagation, which allows a higher adhesion time because of the tapering shape. Okay, and we can use the bending and suction features to grip and also wrap around, move, and place like a very flat piece of paper. Okay, and also we can retrieve objects from very narrow opening by picking up like a foam and pulling it out. And by what do we learn from this morphological study? We just simply tune the tapering angle and bending suction feature can improve the grasping of the octopus tentacle. So that's why we have nerve from this according to this robot and according to the simulations. Okay, but we found that just a morphological study is not sufficient. We further gradually move on by incorporating material side. Okay, so if you look at this video, the tentacle can sticking on top of the 3D printed surface, but fail to grasping it because the surface roughness is around 2 millimeter, and the material cannot achieve a self-adaptation. So what we do is we incorporating the organohydrogel materials whose inertial network can be programmed by heat. So in order to achieve the heating change, we use electricity and using materials like silicon materials to convert the electrical current into the heat. So, and then we can achieve stepwise tuned stiffness. So the results show that the stiffness of the suckers can change from 1.3 megapascal to around 0.1 megapascal. And then it can adapt to a surface around like a 2 millimeter, which cannot be achieved by traditional silicon materials. So this is called adaptive adhesion due to the materials. Okay, it's just by applying a voltage of 17 volts. It's not high voltage, but low voltage. So as a result, we can simply show that it can grasping a very rough 3D printed surface by simply adding a 10 volts. And also it can grasping a toy basket with bumpy surface by adding 8 volts. So this is because the stiffness of the material change, so it can well adapt to the local asperity. Okay. Now things become the challenge is how to sensorize the arm. Okay. So if you look at this elegant picture, this is from National Geographic. So we can see the octopus, they have a very small brain as indicated by my cursor right here. So compared with the human brain ratio, the octopus brain is pretty small, but they have a very long arm. So there is an arm nerve cord shown in this yellow color, and also there is sucker guardian, which means that a lot of neurons on the octopus suckers, and there are rich soft muscles which control the high degrees of freedom of the whole arm. Okay, so there are two challenges we hope to solve when we come up if we want to implement a bi-inspired robot. The first one is how to implement the sensory network of the arm and the suckers. The second one is how we can realize a real octopus-like capture prey locomotion. As here shown, this is a layered snapshots of how arm can bend, propagating the arm to the distal end to capture during the capture prey. Okay, so to achieve this, first we talked about the sensory, how to sensorize the tentacles. So if anyone working on soft robot, we know that when it's working, it's inflated. So inflating structure, its surface has been stretched not only from one direction, but also from both direction. And also if we need the suction cups to attach to the surface, so there's a large deformation. How to sense all this variation? Okay, so that's a challenge. So if we want to apply the sensing bending, sense of bending, and also sensing the suction, to summarize the challenges, how to implement a sensory circuit for complex shaped soft robot surface when it tolerates high deformation. So the way we solve this problem is by starting by implementing a sensory circuit. Okay, so we use technologies of liquid metal printing to get started, and then we use we print the liquid metal circuit on a non-stretchable carbon plate, and then pour its surface on top with silicone materials and put in the freezers and go down to minus 140 degrees and do the transferring to a stretchable surface with silicone rubber, and then putting the integrating circuits on it, and then do coating. So I'm going to skip the details. It's pretty challenging, but I'm going to show some of the details during the printing. And so also this is some elements connected by the liquid metal electrodes. We can see there are analogs, connectors, Bluetooth, and also the strain sensors right here, and also the MCU microcontroller. And specifically, there are double layers or even more layers during this fabrication process, which allow this very complex shaped circuit being implemented. So this is a whole snapshot of the circuit. So what is the performance of the circuit? Is eventually we hope to achieve a highly stretchable results, which means that we want to be stretched as large as possible. So there's one method we applied to enhance the stretching rate is by adding intermediate materials, or we call this granular materials. So that is this material stiffness lay between the rigid silicones and the silicone elastomer. So we probably choose its material stiffness and perform the simulations. And finally, we found that with intermediate materials, and for single direction, it can stretching up to over 700%. While without the intermediate material, it can only be stretched up around 270. So, and also if we put all the integrated chips on it for sensing, communication, data storage, and communication, we can still obtain a maximal stretching rate up to 360%, as shown here. Okay, you can see the LED is running, which shows that the program is fine. And we also show that it can not only be stretching from one direction, but also from both directions. To validate this, we inflating the flexible or stretching circuit from the bottom. So it's inflating like a balloon. And so it's running a program inside. And also we define an algorithm that when we press it, it will automatically shrink. So we hope that this will happen during this large deformation. Okay, so after this we were sure. So to make sure that the software robot can be sensorized during working. So this is a results we showed. And after we testify the methodologies, we implement the special shape of this type of the circuit. So on the left, you can see this is for bending sensory part, and this is on the right, this is sensory part that's designed for the suction cups. If you have more suction cups, you can do scalable designs. While in the middle, we defined like this is a space for integrated circuits. We can put MCU and also communication and some other analogs circuits in the middle. So, and then we're wrapping around the circuit to the tentacles. So this is a picture showing the whole thing, okay? And also you can see the suction cup are patterned by liquid metal sensory here. So, and it can sense the environmental parameters and the variables. So first we will do mathematical modeling of the bending sensations and reconstructing its profile. We adding several sections of the bending sensors, which can basically sense its lens changes. So we convert the lens into angles, and also we can obtain the configuration according to the bending geometries obtained from the sensory signals, and we do the calculations. So here's the math model. I'm going to skip the details, and eventually we can obtain like the local curvature and the curvature and the bending angle. All these type of parameters. Let me take one example. This is reconstructed results, bending results based on wireless received data, which means that it's doing the computations on board and transmitting the data back to the computer. That's computing by itself. You can see that the curvature reflects where to bend and also how much you bend it. So the bending diameters as well as the bending angle can be calculated through the model. Meanwhile, the sensors can allow the robot to sense other environmental parameters, including the adhesion state can be sensed. For example, whether it's under a strong adhesion mode or it's relaxed or detached mode. And also it can sense different temperatures ranging from 0 degrees centigrade to 100 degrees. So here we show the hot water and also the ice can be sensed. So the red curve indicates hot water, while the blue indicates ice water. And this tentacle can sense different hardness of objects. So ranging from 55 kPa to 3,000 megapascal, as shown here in this graph. If we put everything together, can we make the tentacle smarter? So can we make the tentacle autonomously detecting and also do some manipulation in a confined space? So this is a pre-programmed tentacles. Everything is on board. It's trying to find the entrance of the confined space by using the onboard sensors. And it's trying to locate where the bump is based on the temperature sensors. Once it detects the bumps, attach its the bumps by using its suckers, and then rotate and turn off the bumps, and then get it back. So this program shows that we can make very complex tasks or pre-program the missions to the tentacles, not remotely, but embed everything on board. And after we talked about the embedded neural networks and sensory neurosensory network, and then we talked about the octopus arm kinematics. One thing, the kinematics of the octopus arm is very different with traditional rigid robotics. So they actually use a bending propagation mode to reaching a target. So if you look at the video, we actually watched, we raised the octopus in our lab, and we have taken hundreds of videos, and we found that the octopus would like to use basically, it's called bending propagation, but we classify into reaching and sweeping here. So reaching is basically using the transfers of a bending wave from the bottom of the arm to the tip. But using a very straight ways. While sweeping is they have an initial angle and they have a throw motions, but meanwhile they have a bending propagation wave. Okay, So how to mathematically model this phenomena or this kinematics? So we use a while to figure out what kind of equations we can use. And finally, we use my student Jiaqi Liu has figured out a Rose line equation under polar coordinate. So as described here, so the advantage of this Rose line equation is they only have just a few parameter inputs. So basically, it's 4 parameters. They can control the whole mathematical modeling and describe the bend propagation. And also, this equation can be simply discretized into several segments. For example, this is a 6-segment soft arm. So we can discretize the Rose line model and incorporate and program this very easily. Okay, so here we showed some results. We can use a program to model the riching and the sweeping. So here's the model results in MATLAB. This is a robotic riching. And so I was just talking about the simple outcome of this is the riching motions can achieve like a very straightforward path. So they can, move the arm, the distal end of the arm following a straight path. It's almost a straight line. While the sweeping motion, so they have a larger area, so you can swipe a large area, while its path is more like a parabola path, okay? And here we show the video of the riching motion. You can see that this is when the initial angle is 0 degrees, so they can reach directly to the toy bin dun dun and then pull it back. So we can just change in the initial angle, preset the initial angle, and the tentacle will directly go there. So you can see the LED changes because when it's sense whether it's grasped or not, and then trigger the pulling back motion. Okay, and meanwhile we can show that this is a sweeping motion. It can sweep through a parabola path, and they can grasping anything on this path. And once they touch the object, they will trigger the pull back motions. Okay, so people wonder, is this working space limited? Oh, actually, that's something we're doing right now. Is we hope that we can grasp in anything within this this swiping area. So that's simply by adding more suckers on the entire arm and making the suckers sensorized. So here we also demonstrating workspace we showed by this sweeping motion. So you can see that each range indicates 1 trails. So basically, it can reach everywhere within this with this shaded area. But in the future, we hope that this area can be achieved just by 1 trail. Okay, and also we noted another interesting phenomenon during our experiments is that we noted there is actuation propagation during the reaching or sweeping motion. Okay, if you see when the octopus arm is doing this motion, there's the wave of actuation start from the first segment and to the final segment 5. Its actuation, it follows a propagation pattern. So each one of the time, just 1 segment was actuated. So I think the advantage of this propagation are twofolds. On one hand, it's very simple to control, and on the other hand, it's power saving. Okay, but I think this is this is very similar to the muscle activity of the biological octopus. Somebody have measured the EMG signal of the octopus when they catch it and when they do the bending propagation. So the shapes are pretty similar, but how to better use the data and how to use the actuation propagation to generating more efficient motion. That will be a future study. Okay, we also hope to control the robot with a human in the loop. In order to achieve this, we develop a suction haptic wearable glove, as shown here in this image. You can see this is a soft glove implemented by our liquid printing technologies. We have IMU and also have the strain sensors on top. And also there's a Bluetooth for the communications. And what's interesting is the inside of the glove, it has suction haptics, okay, which allows you to, allows the pulling the fingers flush to sense the suction with the remote control, the technical touch or surface. And also we can use the bending sensors feedback and IMU to control the bending of the tentacles, okay? So is that possible to use this glove to control the entire arm's motions? So here we have achieved the glove and the robot mapping. So we have depicted the gestures of the fingers and can control the rotating, the reaching, the sweeping, and the withdrawal motion just by one finger, okay? So it can swipe simply like this, and then they can pull it back. So to control the soft arm. So here we show that the how a single the operator wearing this glove interacting with a computer program, okay? And then my student Yuanfei Yang, with his eye covered, he can control the entire arm with visionless conditions and control the arm to reach out, touch the objects, grab it, and then pull it back. So that's we also show that the operator can control the arm in a three-dimensional manner. So it's out of plan. So by controlling one extra degrees at the bottom of the arm, so to rotate by rotating the elbow of the operator, by changing the initial angle, and then trigger the bending propagation and retrieve the object through the haptic feedbacks. So this is the operator in the air, and also it can control the arm to grasping a toy shark on the water, okay? So, and also we thought about, okay, how to deploy the software robotic arm to the real world. So the challenges are several folds, especially if you want to put the soft arm like the octopus in the ocean. That is you have to deal with the underwater environment, okay? So the first challenge is how to obtain the information from underwater. That is underwater vision. So we collaborated with some control people who implemented the image restorations, and so they can quickly make the blurred images, make it clear, and then depicted the locations of the target, and we can do the targeted detection and the tracking. So that is a blurred underwater image can tend to turn to be very clear images and locating the target and give us coordinates for the arm. The second is there are a lot of turbulence in the real world environments, unlike the laboratory condition. So the flow may come from everywhere. So we use machine learning, especially the reinforcement learning for the robot in the turbulent flow. And by multiple trails training, so they can tracking the objects, even with the turbulent flow come from different directions. You can see that there's always a vision, simply vision feedback. So the arm can track this the object and then perform the grasp. Okay. And also we need to make this grasping process autonomous with the machine. Okay. So we combine the soft arm with a RV machine. So, and with the vision, we can see that it can approach the target, adjust its position, and then perform this grasping autonomously. So this is a single object grasping. We also show that it can grasp multiple objects in a single trails. And we show that we can perform autonomous grasping tests even under weak light. So here is the original light. So this is our refined images and the videos. So they perform autonomous grasping. Okay, and then we go to the field. What we chose is the Bay Area. So the real world experiments carried out in this Bay Area with a water depth of around 10 to 15 meters. So the robot dive into the seabed and grasping like seafood animals, include sea urchins, shells, and also sea cucumbers. And it's actually a competition. So the robots will dive there and autonomously working for 20 minutes. And then final results is it grasping like 8 sea urchins and 1 sea cucumbers autonomously. Okay, so this is a whole video of that the competition. You can see this is a Bay Area, and this is where we deploy the robots for capturing this all these type of sea animals. So this is a very close views of how this soft arm is a soft gripper grasping sea urchins and also the sea cucumbers, things like that. And we'll put everything into the connecting basket. We also tried the soft arm on different types of forms of platform. In collaborating with Matsiko and Sicily, we testing our soft continuum arm with their lagged robots, which can generate little disturbance on the seabed, so they can quietly move towards our target and then perform the grasping without any disturbing any dust on the bottom of the ocean. Okay, so you can see the elegant motion generated by the legs and approaching the target and perform the grasping. Okay, with this, because of the time limits, I would like to wrap up. Today we talked about how to design a soft arm starting from morphology and then sensors, and then finally do the interactions. If you want to hear more details, get more details, you can refer to the papers listed down here. And with this, I would like to thank all my lab members and thank you very much for your listening. I'd like to take your questions afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Professor Wen, and thank you for your wonderful and fresh contribution again. Yeah. So, yeah. Our
I hope my voice has been clear heard. I'm not sure. So, okay.
Thank you for the wonderful contribution again. You know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, we leave time for the Q&A in the next session. So we will take the next presentation. So our next speaker is Professor Fu Zhang. And Dr. Zhang is an assistant professor in the Mechanical Engineering Department of the University of Hong Kong. And his research focused on UAVs and light detection and ranging, simultaneous localization and mapping. Today, he will give us a talk about a single accurate UAV with efficient flight and autonomous navigation. So, Professor Zhang, I pass the baton to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Liu. Can you hear me and also see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you for the warm introduction. Well, first, I want to thank you that, I'm honored to be a speaker in Science Café. So my group at Hong Kong U have been working on developing different type of unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs, especially those problems that encounter deploying the UAV to the real world. But the problem is actually very challenging because the real world is complicated. It is uncontrolled, full of disturbance, and also non-cooperative participants. And it is also uninstrumented. So the robot has to, rely on all by itself, its onboard sensor and computation. So anyway, so today I'm gonna present to me, it's a very interesting work, which I think step one forward towards the deployment of UAVs to the real world. So this work was also published in Science Robotics in March of this year. So the topic is a single actuated UAV with the capability for autonomous navigation. So our story starts with the sensor field of view problem. So for UAVs, a visual sensor, such as cameras and LiDAR sensor, light detection and ranging sensor, those are essential for the UAV to perform state estimation in GNSS denied environment, and also to perceive the environment, for example, for obstacle environment and to perform actual tasks. But there is one problem. So the commonly used visual sensor often have very limited field of view. Okay, so as a result, it can only measure the environment around a certain direction. So to solve this problem, well, for sure, there are many existing methods already. For example, we could use, let me turn on the laser pointer. So for example, we can use a sensor that already come with a very large field of view. Okay, we could use also multiple sensors. So each one contributes a certain field of view. So by using multiple numbers, so the field of view could be much larger. Okay, we could also use extra devices like a gimbal system to change, the field of view of a onboard sensor, so that the field of view could be expanded. But those methods could have problems. For example, a fisheye camera, so it has a very large field of view, but it has obvious distortion. Okay, for LiDAR, so there is also spinning LiDAR, so the field of view is already, around all the directions. So, but the problem is this 360-degree field of view is only on the horizontal direction. So the vertical direction still has a very limited field of view, and also a very low resolution often. So using more sensors or using extra devices, those are also possible solutions. But the more sensors or the extra devices often mean more weight. So they inevitably add more weight to the UAV. So for UAV, so the weight is actually very crucial, because every piece of weight added to the UAV would degrade its performance, especially the flight duration, because the battery on board the UAV is rather limited. Okay, so so any additional weight could contribute the reduction of flight time. Okay, so we focus on different methods. So we want to exploit, we want to utilize the motion of the UAV that is already within the UAV. So because the UAV by design is able to move and it's able to changes your direction, so it already has a motion capability. So by exploiting this motion capability, so the field of view of an onboard sensor could be expanded naturally. So a very obvious motion that is capable by UAV is a self-rotation, right? So if the UAV can rotate by itself, then the sensor field of view could be expanded around, all directions. Okay, so this concept is very similar, to the UAV that we could find. Sorry. So it's very similar to the concept, that already presented in the movie Prometheus. So we have seen a self-rotating UAV that can explore a tunnel autonomously. Well, that's what's happening in the science fiction, but in the reality, the implementation of a self-rotating UAV could be quite different. So according to the number of actuators used by the UAV, could see multiple different implementations, such as the implementation with one motor and one servo, so 2 actuators in total, or 2 motors, or 3 motors and 1 servo. Okay, So those are the self-rotating UAVs with multiple actuators. And there are also UAVs that could rotate by itself, but with only one actuator. So for example, the one with a single motor, which is installed in the center. And this one is also has only one motor, but much smaller in size. And mono spinner has one motor, which is installed at the side of the UAV. And also one motor, the work number 4, and one servo is the work number 5. Okay, so those are all different implementations to achieve a self-rotation with only one actuator, one motor or one servo motor. So some of them, for example, the first two, so they can only control the altitude, but not the attitude, because the attitudes are simply passively stabilized, so without any active control. So the lack of control of attitude means that we cannot control the position, the horizontal position of the UAV. So the last work, the work number 5. So on the other hand, so it's able to control the attitude, but not the altitude, because the one servo motor can only steer the UAV into different horizontal positions, but the whole flight is on power flight. So that means the altitude is constantly descending. So from a given position, a given altitude, so it's constantly descending all the way to the ground. So the middle two, the mono spinner and work number 4, so those two implementations did achieve, both attitude control and altitude control. So that means the full 3-dimensional position can be controlled. So compared with the multiple actuator implementation, well, the single actuator implementation is quite, advantages. So for example, it utilizes only one actuator, which is also the minimum number of actuator for a power flight. So for a power flight, in order to provide power, so the one actuator should be the minimum one. So we could not use 0 actuator, right? So in that case, it would not be a power flight. So this one actuator, the motor often, by itself, the counter torque could induce the self-rotation naturally without any extra actuator. So this self-rotation is achieved, naturally. So that's the second advantage. But they also come with, so the advantage also come with drawbacks. So one drawback is that, so the control principle of such a single actuating UAV is that at each cycle of the self-rotation, so the motor would change its thrust, so to provide the moment. So in this way, the attitude of the UAV is actually controlled only once at each cycle of the self-rotation. Since the self-rotation is often at a rather low frequency, a few hertz, so such a low control rate of the attitude would limit the bandwidth that can be achieved. So the limited bandwidth on the attitude control, in return, limits the bandwidth of the position control. So as a result, the position is very hard to be precisely controlled. Okay, so that's one drawback. So the other drawback is, so as you can see from the shape of this kind of UAV, so the motor is installed on the side of the UAV, and the rest of the UAV, so it's actually a very spatial shape, because this spatial shape is required because it requires a very sophisticated weight distribution to trim the system, because the system is highly unstable. So a sophisticated weight distribution is necessary to trim the overall system. So this dedicated weight distribution would make the the payload very difficult to be carried on the UAV. So we cannot install the UAV. We cannot install the payload, for example, in the center of the UAV, because that will destroy the trim condition of the whole UAV. So as a result, carrying extra payloads is very difficult. Okay, So the other drawback is that, so due to the self-rotation, so if we install a sensor on board the UAV, for example, a visual sensor like a camera for the state estimation, then it would have a very difficult problem. The problem is that the self-rotation would have a very rapid field of view change. So this rapid motion, this rapid self-motion would cause image blur and also a very small overlap between two consecutive camera images. So this will make the onboard state estimation and also mapping very challenging. Okay, so the challenge in the mapping also makes the autonomous flights based on its onboard sensor and computing units rather challenging. Okay, so that's a little bit, the literature review and the problems and the advantages of existing implementations. So here comes with our solution. So it is all summarized on this slide. So in our solution, what we do is we also use one motor, but the motor now is installed in the center. So that it's a symmetric body geometry. So if we have any extra panels, so it can be installed right underneath the motor, so without affecting the trim condition of the UAV. So carrying extra panels could be very simple. So in this case, we carry an extra LiDAR sensor because the LiDAR sensor is able to measure the environments with points that's very precisely and at a very high frequency. So the current LiDAR could give us a point measurements up to hundreds of thousands of hertz. So this high rate point measurements would enable us to perform the state estimation very reliably, despite of the rapid self-rotation. Okay, so that's a sensor. So in this way, we have a onboard sensor for state estimation and also mapping of the environment, which ultimately lead to the autonomous navigation in unknown environments. Okay, so the key components that enable the control of the UAV is called the swatch plateless mechanism. So which is the part in between the blades and the motor. So this mechanism, I will present the principle later in great details. So in summary, so this mechanism would produce a very interesting phenomenon. So it would produce a moment within the propeller disc plane. So this moment is fully controllable. So as a result, so we could use this moment to control the attitude, well, more precisely, the pitch and roll direction of the attitude of the UAV. So controlling the pitch and roll direction of the attitude of UAV means that we can control the position of the UAV. Okay, and moreover, the moment is produced, is adjusted, is changed at each cycle of the propeller rotation, which is often at a very high frequency. So in our case, the propeller frequency, the propeller rotation frequency is up to 100 hertz, so which is almost 30 times than the body self-rotation. So this high rate of moment generation would enable a very high rate attitude control, which could achieve a very precise attitude control and hence a position control. Okay, so since the whole UAV has only one motor, so we know that the motor, if the rotor rotates, so that's because the stator has a torque applied on the rotor, then the rotor would produce an opposite torque to the stator. So this opposite torque, we call it a counter torque, would then drive the UAV to rotate constantly. And so this rotation could be very high if we don't do anything. So in order to lower the body self-rotation, we install 4 plates. So those transparent plates. So these plates can introduce the drag force, wind drag, so that can slow down the self-rotation. So with all this implementation, the body self-rotation is around 3 Hertz. So 3 cycles per second. So this video show the UAV in action. So as we can see, so in a simple hovering flight, the UAV is experiencing a constant self-rotation. Okay, so since the UAV carry a LiDAR sensor, and the LiDAR sensor emits a laser beams. So along with the self-rotation, the laser beams will spread along all the directions, as shown in the upper right video. Okay, so this phenomenon is very similar to the astronomical pulsar. So we name this UAV pulsar. So pulsar has a as a single actuated self-rotating UAV. So it inherits the advantages of single actuated UAV. So on top of that, pulsar has some extra advantages. One is that, as we mentioned, the moment is generated at a very high rate, which is often tens of times higher than the body self-rotation. So this high rate moment generation would enable a high rate attitude control. So therefore achieving a precise attitude and position control. So the second advantage is that it's able to carry extra payloads without affecting the trim condition of the UAV. So we could mount any extra payloads rather easily. So in this case, we mount a LiDAR sensor, so which gives the UAV the mapping ability, which is essential for autonomous flights. So when compare pulsar with all self-rotating UAV, so we can see that pulsar has achieved power flights with only one actuator, and this one actuator would enable it to achieve a controllable 3-dimensional motion in our space. Okay, and it has onboard localization capability enabled by its onboard LiDAR sensor, and it also has a capability for autonomous navigation. Okay, and finally, it could achieve a precise attitude and position control. So as we mentioned, the key components in pulsar is a swatch plated mechanism. So this mechanism essentially consists of 2 asymmetric hinges. These hinges are passive, requiring no actuation at all. But it could be, it's able to produce a moment that is fully controllable moment in the propeller disc plane. So this conventionally was achieved by a swatch plate mechanism that was widely found in helicopters. But as apparently, so the swatch plate mechanism is much more complicated. So it requires a very sophisticated swatch plate mechanism. All those ball bearings, this lever system, and also 3 servos to actuate this swatch plate mechanism. But the swatch plate mechanism is much simpler, which is very important for a small UAV. So this mechanism was initially invented by James and Ian at UPenn. So it's a very brilliant design. So we did some improvements on this design, including, for example, reducing the friction in the hinges, and also we control this mechanism purely on the autopilot without any customized motor controller. So the principle of the swatch plated mechanism is also quite simple. So the key principle is that at each cycle of the propeller rotation, the motor is accelerated and decelerated once, okay, at a certain position. So by accelerating the motor, so the hinge would cause the blades at one side to increase its pitch angle, but on the other side, the blades would decrease its pitch angle. So this different change in the pitch angle would cause the differential thrust. Okay, so because the pitch angle is different, so the thrust produced by each blade would be different. Okay, so this differential thrust eventually produce the moments that can be used to control the attitude. So this video show the switch-plateless mechanism in action. This was captured by a high-speed camera. So we can see that so the propeller blades are experiencing a periodic change in its pitch angle. So this pitch angle change would then cause a moment that bend the propeller blades towards a moment direction. The moment is actually quite evident and very, very significant. Otherwise, the blade would not be bent as shown in this video. So to accelerate or decelerate the motor at a proper position, we have to install a magnetic encoder to precisely measure the rotor location. And also we have to select the motor very carefully because so that the motor would have a significant speed variation at each cycle of its rotation. So eventually we performed the analysis, and the results show that a motor with a moderate kV value is very important. So neither too small or too large kV value. So we characterized the switch-plateless mechanism. And so this plot shows the generated moment, and the x-axis shows the command. So as can be seen, the produced moment is quite smooth. So there is no deadband phenomenon that was widely found in the previous switch-plateless mechanism. And also the collective thrust here is very steady. So after designing the key components, we switch to the modeling and control. So the modeling is quite standard, except the attitude. Since the UAV has its yaw angle that is completely uncontrolled, so the actual yaw angle is actually not a concern. So it's not within our consideration. So in the model, we only have to consider its pitch and roll direction. So to avoid the singularity in the pitch and roll direction, we represent the roll and pitch attitude by the body z-axis, which is a unit vector. Okay, and similarly for angular speed, we also consider the angular speed in the body x and y direction only. So this slide shows the overall software pipeline, including the onboard LiDAR inertial odometry, the mapping, and the trajectory planning. So those modules are implemented on the onboard computer, which is an ARM chip, ARM Cortex-A chip, low power chip, which is able to run all the navigation software pipeline. We also have a flight controller, Pixhawk, so which run the trajectory planning controller, trajectory tracking controller, and the motor, speed modulation module. So for the control, it's quite standard, except the attitude controller. The attitude controller is a geometry controller because it only has to control the roll and pitch direction without, meanwhile, to avoid singularities. So we designed a geometry controller for the attitude, and we prove that it's stable, globally stable. And we do some experiments to characterize, the flight performance of such a UAV. So in the first test, we test its responsiveness. So we send a 1 meter polarization step to the UAV and see how fast it's able to reach that position. So we can see that the position response is within 1 second, while the other two directions, incremental directions, the position remain at their initial values very well. For the attitude, the tracking performance is quite satisfactory. The actual attitude follows the recommended one very closely, and the same for the angular velocity. So which proves the control authority of this swatch places mechanism. We also conducted trajectory tracking control in an indoor laboratory session. We use a figure 8 trajectory. So we can see that the tracking performance is in the range of centimeter level, tens of centimeter level. It's slightly worse than quad rotor because it only uses one motor, but still quite satisfactory. Moreover, this one actuator UAV consumes much significant less energy than a benchmark quad rotor. So the energy consumption is only half in this case. So here it shows the actual flights for the trajectory tracking. So after taking off, the UAV fly a figure 8 trajectory. So the right-hand side shows the mapping results of the onboard navigation pipeline. Okay, so we also analyzed the efficiency. We found that the efficiency of a single bigger propeller is actually higher than 4 smaller propeller, even though they have the same disk area. Although in principle they are the same, but in practice we enumerated many practical propellers. We found that a single bigger propeller is actually more efficient. And also compare the propeller with motor, and also in the context of a complete UAV, and also in actual flights. And they all suggest the efficiency improvement in the single actuator UAV. And finally, we compare with the commercial UAV. One is DJI Mavic 2, and the other one is DJI Mavic 3. So we make 2 variants of our UAV because the original UAV has drastic different parameters when compared with the commercial UAV. So we can see that the variant A actually has a 6% efficiency improvement as shown in this table. Although it has a smaller disk area, or nearly the same disk area, but a significantly larger weight, but the efficiency could still be higher. And for the variant B, it has a smaller disk area than the DJI Mavic 3, a larger battery, a larger weight, but the efficiency is still higher. And eventually, the overall flight time is also slightly longer than the Mavic 3, although the battery is also smaller for the single actuator UAV. So finally, I want to show the UAV, in the real world, how it is performing in the real world. So bring the UAV out of the laboratory and demonstrate its usage in the real world environment. So in the first test, we make the UAV to navigate through a bunch of waypoints in an unknown environment. So in this case, it's a wood environment. So this environment is unknown to the UAV before the flight. So after taking off, the UAV would fly through a bunch of waypoints. And in this process, it also needs to plan a trajectory that can avoid the obstacles, and it's able to perceive the new obstacles in the environment. Okay, so we can see that it is indeed able to fulfill the goal. So it's flying from the takeoff position to the end of the wood environment, which is on the left-hand side, and then it flies back. So in this whole process, all the computations are happening on the onboard computer. So this could also be done at night because of the use of a LiDAR sensor. So it's able to overcome the dark environment because it's a passive sensor. So Due to the expanded field of view, so the UAV is able to perceive the obstacles from all different directions. So in this experiment, we test this phenomenon exactly. So we toss the object into the UAV from different directions, and in all cases, the UAV is able to avoid them safely. And finally, we conduct an experiment in a natural environment, in a cave. This is a construction site somewhere in Hong Kong. So the UAV take off from a pad, placed on the ground. Then it flies a short trajectory towards the track in front of it, and then it flies back. So in this whole process, we can clearly see the LiDAR point cloud is being constantly rotated. And in this process, the UAV is able to measure the environment with a much more, so the field of view sense is expanded, so we can obtain a more complete observation of the environment. So it gives us a more complete mapping of the environment, which could be quite useful for the subsequent applications. Okay, that's pretty much all my presentation. And at last, I want to thank all the students involved in this work. Especially, I want to thank Chen Nan, who is the leading author of this work. Also, he contributes his slides as well. I also want to thank all the sponsors in this work. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Thank you all for the wonderful presentation. Now, we would like to open the floor to your questions and discussions. And your questions and thoughts are highly valued. So please feel free to ask anything you'd like. And everyone in the Zoom board and the boardroom, and we can open the camera and the microphone to ask questions if you like. So any questions? Yeah. Actually, I found some very interesting questions from the chat box. And maybe, do you have more questions we can directly ask in the Zoom firstly? No? Yeah. There are some questions from the chat box, and some of them very interesting. Maybe we select some. Yeah. And there is one, I guess it's for Professor Li Zhang. And he asked something about the precision of the magnetic robot's movement. He's asked is that the precision is determined by the size and also the design of the robots, or it is determined by the distribution of the magnetic field?
Okay, yeah, it's a good question. The precision, of course, is one of the main thing we care in robotics. I think for the medical robotics, one limitation, for the precision is actually from the imaging modality. For example, if we're using the ultrasound and the X-ray, usually the precision cannot be higher than 100 micron. Simply because of the limitation, the resolution limitation from those imaging modality. That's not from the magnetic field. It's actually, how much you can see, from those imaging tools. So it turns out that, first thing, we would like to improve will be the resolution of those imaging tools. For example, the X-ray or the ultrasound. Currently, they are still kind of noisy. That's the reason, one research branch will be the usage of AI, do some kind of image processing, to get, a clearer image quality, for the navigation of microrobots. And regarding, the magnetic actuation, I would say that the precision can be quite good, down to micron or sub-micron should be doable, because one research branch for the microrobotics is micro manipulation. So you can use those microrobots for cell, cell manipulation, and there are a lot of work, interesting work published even 10 years ago already. Based on my experience, if you use magnetic field, you can get resolution, less than a micron. So it shouldn't be an issue. Yeah.
That should be fine enough. Okay. Any questions in our boardroom? Please open your camera. You can hands up. I can help you to open your camera. To turn on your camera, please. Okay, let's since the limited time, we give the chance to the platforms again. And also they give the comments again. He's confused. It is possible. They are confused. Is if it is possible to more comfortable to use a machine in medical surgery. I guess it's from both platform. Also to Professor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure if I have well understood the question. So the question is in the real world, whether the machine can do better job than the surgeon. I guess that's a question. I think yes and no. It depends on which part you would like the machine to operate. I think how to say that basically we are thinking that in current stage it's better to let the machine do the operation under the supervision of the surgeon. So it's very much like the AGV, this kind of things. Nowadays the car, they can do the auto driving, right? But however, if some emergency case happen, then the human want to take over, right? And can to control the machine. I think in the real world it's the same situation because no one want to have any accident, right? I think that in that sense, we're thinking that do some kind some tedious work can be done by the machine, and but perhaps the commander should be the surgeon, still the surgeon. Yeah, so it's not something like the replacement, but we are more think of the assistant job can be done by the machine, and some part like the AI also can help the to do the how to say, to strengthen the capability of the surgeon, right? To let the surgeon see more, get more information, and help them to do the surgery with higher performance, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. We still have a question for Dr. Li Wen, and they want very interesting question. They want to ask, would you compare the octopus arm to human hands? And the octopus arm has more freedom to control, but we commonly say that human hands are most versatile with much less freedom also. Can you comment on this? That they also ask if there are some operations that octopus arm can do, but the human hand cannot.
Okay. Yeah, this is a really an interesting question. This is not only for a scientific science fiction question, but also a realistic question. First, octopus live in the ocean, so it's a very powerful tool to grasp in unconstructed environments, especially in the marine environments, where human hands this type of form can be lessly seen on the water, right? And specifically, octopus arm do have hundreds of muscles, and also they have suction cups on the whole arm. So what we observe from this paper is one unique property that what we think it's the octopus arm is stronger, more powerful than human hands, is our human hands can only grasping area at the end, distal end, while the octopus arm can grasping things from the entire arm, according to the suckers. So when they catch a prey, so you using they always use a very elegant way to reach the target. So it's control hundreds of muscles, but following a very simple strategy. So that's what we call bending propagation. So the bending wave travel from the bottom of the arm to the tip of the arm. What's interesting is control is very simple. So it's just a control of just a few parameters. So it's actually using a quite smart way to control the hundreds of muscles to achieve grasping. So that's from the control side. From the result side is they can swipe a big area. So we suspect that anything inside of this sweeping area, it can get back. So I think this is more powerful than the human being. And regarding the speed, the octopus can reach the target within just 1 second, as fast as like just a few milliseconds, just eye blink, and then get it back. And finally, I would say the octopus live underwater. So I think what's remained unexplored in our current study is this type of bending propagation. They can reduce very low flow drag when they reach out the arm. So when the human arm wave on the water, we can feel that the drag force is pretty high. But the octopus, when they reach out, it's very fast and it has very low drag. So to sum up, I think that octopus arm, under very specific environments such as on water, we do think that it have huge advantage over the human hands regarding the grasping speed and also the efficiency, the area, and also the control is not very difficult for the octopus, but an interesting thing to study in the future. Yeah.
I see. I guess I got the answer, and I hope the audience can also got the answer. And we look for another platform. We give the chance, and there is for Professor Fu Zhang. He must be a parent, and he will ask you not a scientific question, but he's curious about he or she is curious about the cost of the cool UAV. I guess UAV. I guess it's the UAV you talked, the autonomous navigation UAV, and can he or she buy one for their kids?
Well, the short answer is no, because it's a Hong Kong property. I'm sorry for that.
Actually, I'm also curious about this. Yeah, that's interesting.
Actually, I have a question for Professor Fu Zhang, if I can ask. Have you looked at potentially combining your flying system with other types of robots in the form of a team, for example, with legged robots or wheeled robots? So, for example, applications in search and rescue, would that be possible?
Well, yeah, it's definitely possible. We are actually diving into that direction. But before that, we are solving some basic problems, like how to perform the mutual localization of different robots in a swarm, especially when they are to achieve a high accuracy. For example, if a swarm of UAV has to carry a package, their mutual localization have to be very accurate so that they could collaborate instead of degrading the others, instead of pulling back the others. Yeah. So about combining the UAV with also legged robots, we don't have any current work going on around that direction, but I do see well, it's very promising, especially when we consider multi-robot collaboration. Yeah. Thank you.
So does any more questions or comments? Okay. I think we have all right. We still have many questions on the platform. I will give those questions back to the professor, some for Professor Li Zhang and some for Professor Li Wen and also for Professor Fu Zhang. Okay, because of the time limit and all right, thank you. This is a very engaging Q&A session. Unfortunately, due to the time is limit, that's all we have time for right now. Sorry. And it just remains for me to thank you today, the speakers and the editor, Amos. And thank you for your wonderful speeches and induction. And thank you all, our audience, and for attending this science salon. And we hope that through this salon, we will ignite greater enthusiasm for research. And thank you again, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.